Is SLED Lab L21-09074, item 19. I recognize it with our yellow barcode sticker. And this is SLED Lab number L21-09074, item number 20, again with our yellow barcode sticker.
And what date did you examine these on?
I didn't physically examine these items. Jamie Hall would have taken the particle lifts off of these items, so her initials and date would be on everything. But that, the date that she did that would have been June 8th.
Okay. And when did you actually look at them?
I looked at she did call me in while she was processing them, but I didn't physically take custody of these items.
And I understand that. Maybe I was jumping ahead in my mind. Did you have an occasion when Jamie Hall was processing, you say she called you in there?
She did.
Okay, why?
She smelled something rather unusual for our evidence. Our evidence is usually pretty musky smelling, and when she opened up item 19, which is the white t-shirt, she did smell a strong odor of laundry detergent, and I did confirm that with her.
So she smelled that, said, hey, come in here, I want you to see this, or whatever. Could you smell it?
I could smell the laundry detergent as well.
It smelled like laundry detergent.
Yes, sir.
Did you also, so she took a sample from there, a lift, if you will. So you were examining the lifts off the shirt, correct?
Correct.
And the pants.
Correct.
Did you also get to look at the pants that day on June 8th when Ms. Hall looked at them?
I don't remember if I was in there when she processed the shorts, but I have seen pictures of that she took of the shorts.
Okay, and can you describe the shirt and the shorts when you saw them? The pictures of them.
The shirt is a white t-shirt. There is some staining on the lower left-hand side, but relatively clean. The green cargo shorts are clean.
Okay. Now, what did you do, and while we're here, did you also receive the forensic scientist? Let's start with the shirt.
Okay?
Tell the jury specifically now, we got all that. Tell them specifically. What did you do when you examined the particle lifts in that shirt?
The particle lifts were analyzed on the scanning electron microscope, and how we do that in our lab and how most laboratories throughout the world actually do it is use a software program to help us out. And that's because the particles that we're looking at are so small. If you can imagine two football fields, we're actually looking for particles the size of a pea on those two football fields. So we use a software that does a little bit of an automated analysis, and that automated analysis uses brightness and contrast that's associated with known particles of gunshot primer residue. And it does that automated analysis overnight for us, and in the next day or over the weekend, whatever it is, we come in, and then it provides us a list of candidate features. It tells us what features that it thinks contain the elements lead, barium, and antimony. As the analyst, I then look at those features, I relocate to them on the SEM. So I physically drive the SEM back to that, to the location that it saved. I look at the particle, make sure that it's molten in nature, and then I use the energy dispersive X-ray detector to scan the particle to determine whether lead, barium, and antimony are present.
And I think Ms. Hall described where she took the particle list from. Did you determine, were there any gunshot residue? What did you find on the shirt?
Particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue were found. Particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue are microscopic molten particles that contain the elements lead, barium, and antimony.
And it can come from?
It can come from being in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm or being transferred from an object that has gunshot primer residue on it. No time frame can be provided as to when these particles were deposited.
And as far as 418 in evidence, the shirt, can you tell where the particle lifts were? From the right sleeve, the right chest side?
Can I refer to my notes, please?
Please. I think His Honor will let you.
So for the white T-shirt, from the particle lift that was collected from the right sleeve, right chest area, 2 particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue were found. And from the left sleeve, left chest area, the particle lift collected from there, 1 particle characteristic of gunshot primer residue was found. Those particle lifts are combined into one result for a result of multiple particles.
What does that mean that you found two particle lifts? I mean, as far as the amount of particles you found, what does that mean in your field of expertise?
My opinion is that that object, this T-shirt, was either in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm or came into contact with something that had gunshot primer residue on it. I can't tell you the likelihood which one is more likely to have happened.
And that's your opinion, correct?
That's my opinion.
Now, also in 418, and again, these were the defendant's shirts, pants, and clothes and shoes that we're going to get to in a minute that you were examining, correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
That's what the chain showed.
That's what the submission showed, yes.
Submission slip. Thank you. Now let's go to the pants. Did you have an occasion to examine a particle list that Ms. Hall did?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, and again, and we may not go through this every time, but can you tell the jury what you did again when you were examining the particle list, please?
So the particle lifts from the shorts were analyzed the same way as the particle lifts from the shirt, the same way that we analyze every particle lift that's submitted for gunshot primer residue or collected for gunshot primer residue. Goes through the automated process. I go in, I confirm that there are particles present or that there aren't particles present.
Can you tell me, did you locate any particles and where they were on the shorts, please?
Yes, sir. On the right side, right groin area, there were 2 particles located and confirmed. And then on the left groin area, there was 1 particle located and confirmed.
And you issued a report. What are your findings as a result of finding these particle lists on the shorts that the submission slip said belonged to the defendant on states 418? What's your opinion?
Particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue were found. Again, my opinion is that they were this pair of shorts were either in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm or came in contact with something that had gunshot primer residue on it. Again, I can't tell you which is more likely, and I can't tell you when those particles were deposited.
So they could have come from a transfer holding a gun and then putting it on your pants?
That's correct.
Could have come from being in the vicinity of a shot?
That's correct.
Could they have come from discharging?
Well, the shorts themselves can't discharge, so on an inanimate object, we just say that they're in the vicinity to the discharge.
That's what I meant, yeah, in the vicinity. The vicinity of a discharge.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, they can't discharge, respectfully. Now, did you have an occasion to examine the lifts from Alex Murdaugh's hands that were lifted by Varnado, I believe?
Yes, sir, I did.
And they're already in evidence. And you basically, after Jamie Hall says, hey, these are all done right, they then go to you, right?
Yes, sir.
These are already in evidence.
That's not the GSR kit.
These aren't the GSR kits. Anyway, I don't think we need this in evidence. Did you have an occasion to examine the GSR kit?
I did.
It was taken from Alex Murdaugh?
Yes, sir, I did.
And did you know, you've talked about that 4-hour, 6-hour period. Again, was that checked? And did you make sure that that was collected in the time period or you wouldn't have performed your examination?
That's correct. Not only is it checked by the person inventorying, in this case, Jamie Hall, before I will sign off on that inventory sheet, I also double check the GSR information form. That GSR information form that is included in the kit is also scanned, so we retain a record of it so that I can go back and double check that it was within the 6 hours.
Okay, so you did that.
I did.
All right. And what was your, did your examination conclude as far as the particle lift that was taken from the defendant, Alex Murdaugh?
So one particle lift was collected from his right hand and one from his left hand. One particle characteristic of gunshot primer residue was found. In general, particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue are microscopic, molten particles that contain the elements lead, barium, and antimony. Gunshot primer residue can come from the discharging of a firearm, being in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm, or coming into contact with a surface that has gunshot primer residue on it.
And y'all are going to say that conclusion if it's got just a few particle lifts or a bunch of them, right?
I'm sorry.
Just
what-
a general conclusion, that's what you're going to find, that there are particle lifts, and it can come from one of those three ways, right?
Yes, sir.
Discharge, vicinity.
For hands, we have one of those three ways. For clothing, we only have the vicinity and the transfer.
Right. So is that consistent? If I grabbed one of these firearms and handed it to an officer, would that be consistent with your findings? You can get it from a transfer of a firearm?
You could get one particle from transferring, from a firearm, yes.
If you fired a firearm and washed your hands and then grabbed a firearm and handed it to a police officer, would that be consistent with that also?
Well, you still had that transfer from the firearm. It didn't really matter what you did prior to that. You still could have had that one particle on your hands from that transfer of the firearm.
Did you have an occasion to examine the shoes?
I did.
Particle list from the shoes?
Yes, sir.
States 419. You still got your gloves on?
No, but I can put another pair on.
And what were you provided regarding these shoes?
We were provided that these were the shoes collected from Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
And did you, were you able, well, tell me what your examination from the particle list revealed, if anything.
No particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue were detected.
How many?
None.
None.
No, none.
You know, think about the lab. Did you really know about, do you know anything about the case that I mean, at that point, you're examining something, you don't know anything about who's wearing what or what you're examining, do you? Or who's you're examining, other than the submission slips.
No, I know who it is based on the submission sheet,
Right.
which is important because it has to come from somebody who didn't sustain a gunshot wound.
Okay, and I got that. That's a bad
But-
question. But other than that, you don't know about the case or what evidence, potential evidence, right?
I just know that it was a priority request.
You don't know what shoes the potential suspect was wearing during the day, or how many shoes they were wearing, if they were even wearing shoes, do you?
No, sir.
So your results after finding no gunshot primer residue or what on your report? Will you read it like you reported it?
Yes, sir. No particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue detected. The absence of primer residue on the item is consistent with, but not limited to, the following scenarios: the item not being in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm, cleaning of the item, excessive blood or debris on the item, environmental factors including wind and rain, the ammunition discharged, lead-free, non-toxic, or some .22 caliber rimfire ammunition not producing particles characteristic of the conventional primer residue, or the firearm not producing primer residue on the item when discharged.
So at this point, you've examined a shirt,
Yes, sir.
shorts,
Yes.
hands,
Yes, sir.
gunshot, and shoes.
Yes.
And the date you examined all those again was what?
The date that they were placed on
The particle list that you examined, yes.
Yes, the date they were placed on the scanning electron microscope was June 8th, 2021.
June 8th.
Yes, sir.
And that's the same day that Jamie Hall smelled the shirt.
Yes, sir.
Same day you smelled the shirt.
Yes, sir.
Did you receive any other items in this investigation where you were requested to determine whether or not there was any gunshot primer residue?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I want to show you now what's, I believe, with everybody's help, states number 100, seatbelt. Thank you very much. And you said a priority was placed on this case, right?
Yes, sir.
I apologize. Do you sometimes, have you been present when Jamie Hall was doing the particle list, and have you actually assisted?
Yes, sir, especially if there is an abnormal item submitted for analysis.
All right, and abnormal's got a lot of definitions, but in your world, what does that abnormal mean?
So typical items that we receive are obviously gunshot residue kits, but clothing items like T-shirts or hooded sweatshirts or pants or shorts or shoes, so things that we can have a standard operating procedure for. Those things we can say that we're going to collect from the same areas every single time. Other items are not so typical and then require a little bit more analysis on them.
States 100, is that example of one of those?
Yes, a seatbelt would be an abnormal item.
Do you know when you examined this?
The seatbelt was examined on September 1st, 2021.
And it's brought to your lab,
Correct.
to the director's lab, excuse me. And is this what you examined?
Yes, sir.
And did you actually assist Ms. Hall in attempting to get particle lifts off this?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, so you were both in the room?
Correct.
Gloves on?
Yes.
Jacket on?
Yes.
Mask on?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell these folks, can you help me tell them what this is and where you attempted to get particle lifts?
Yes. So this is, I had to Google this because I'm not super familiar with a seatbelt assembly. This is considered the buckle. This is the part that everybody sees in their vehicle. This bottom portion is what is in between the center console and the seat and not exposed when a person is sitting in the vehicle.
So if I'm driving, is this going to be on my right side?
It should be on your right side, yes.
Okay. And what is this?
So if we start here, the next part that everybody's familiar with is the latch plate, which goes into the buckle. And then there's an entire belt that goes into the retractor wheel.
Can you
And
pull
it-
that? Let's pull it. Don't let it go. All
I
right.
got it.
Where did y'all attempt, you and Ms. Hall attempt to get particle lifts?
So we stretched it out as far as it would go, and we took samples, 3 samples from the belt, front or both sides, and we just divided it into 3 sections and took samples from those 3 sections.
And this was an abnormal item that you assisted Ms. Hall with?
Yes, sir.
Will you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury the results of your examination, if any?
Yes, sir. 1 particle characteristic of gunshot primer residue was found. In general, particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue are microscopic molten particles that contain the elements lead, barium, and antimony. Gunshot primer residue can come from being in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm or coming into contact with a surface that has gunshot primer residue on it. However, no information can be provided as to the time frame in which this particle was deposited.
So in common sense term, how could that get on the seatbelt? Where did you actually find the particle?
The particle was located on the particle lift collected from the buckle, so that piece with the red button.
Just in common sense, in your expert opinion, how could that particle get on that buckle?
It could be from touching something that has gunshot primer residue on it, or possibly being in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm.
So it could be a transfer.
It's probably most likely a transfer, yes, sir.
Okay, say why is it probably most likely a transfer?
It's just usually not exposed to the vicinity. If there isn't a gunshot out of that vehicle, then transfer is the most likely scenario.
Just makes sense, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, you submitted another potential piece of evidence in this case, forensic
Yes.
scientist Megan Fletcher,
Yes, sir, I was.
and what was that?
This was a blue rain jacket, kind of poncho type jacket.
Do you know when I guess when that came into your custody, when you looked at it the first time?
October 5th, 2021.
Of course. States 439.
Excuse me, Your Honor, we renew our earlier objection to this evidence under 403, but we don't have any additional objections.
Yes, sir, submitted.
I first want to show you, I don't know if I'm going to use that ammo or not yet, but just showing what's 430 right now. Is that what you examined?
Those are images of what I examined, yes.
Images of what you examined.
Yes, sir.
And tell the folks where you conducted this examination specifically.
I conducted this examination in the trace evidence laboratory.
I mean,